Greetings, beautiful humans. Would you be willing to embrace the idea that space travelers have been coming to Earth for thousands of years? Just walk outside your comfort zone for a minute. Think back to ancient scripture. It says in Genesis 6:4 that giants were on the earth in the days of Noah before the flood. So we know something was going on there. The Adamic line is one line and the giants are another line. We know something was happening there. During this presentation, I'm going to weave in different paradigms that were nice at the time, but they don't work anymore in light of new evidence. The first paradigm is that UFOs are not real. Okay, if you stand on the ground and look up at a B-2 flying by, you might think that is a UFO because of the shape. I'm pretty sure it was reverse engineered from a UFO. But in 1897, there was a craft that crashed in Aurora, Texas. The craft was recovered. The body was buried in the Aurora, Texas cemetery. In 1897, humans didn't have any craft in the air. No U.S. craft, no Russian craft, no Chinese craft. So, unfortunately, that one doesn't work. Now, you might be thinking, wow, what a geek. She studies all this stuff. But I wasn't always a geek. In fact, when I was younger, people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always wanted to be a mom. I picked my son's name out when I was 16. But before then, I recall a time in my youth that I will call the worst 2 weeks of my life. I was in middle school. I had some friends, my two best friends, and when I went to school one day, for reasons unknown, they stopped talking to me. So I went every day, will you be my friends? You know how elementary school kids write their little notes. Day 1, no. Day 2, no. Day 3, no. Day 4, no. Okay, so the weekend came. That was the longest weekend of my life. Monday rolled around. For sure they'll be my friends now. I wrote the note. Will you be my friends again? They gave me the note back, and I turned it and turned it and turned it, looking for the Y for yes. There was no yes. It went from on to no. So I went home that Monday night. My home life was not that great. It was full of emotional neglect and bullying, and some maternal neglect also. And I went to bed. I didn't know what depression was, and I sure didn't know what suicide was. I just knew that I didn't want to be alive Tuesday morning to go through another day of my family or going to school without my friends talking to me. That was in the 5th grade. Check on your kids. Nobody should go through that. But middle school started, and I hit the ground running. Let's go to the next paradigm. One of the other paradigms, one of the many paradigms, is that interstellar travel is just not possible. The problem with that is Dr. Avi Lowe started an organization called the Galileo Project and went out to the coast of Papua New Guinea and took a ship with some magnets loaded on it and scraped along the ocean floor. How did he know to go there? Because he looked at evidence from the government, from the crash site, and said, hey, something's unusual about this. The speed of this, the location of this, let's go check this one out. And sure enough, they found spherules. When they analyzed those spherules, it was made out of alloys that's not part of Earth, and it's not part of our solar system. And when it crashed, the scientists said that it had 1,000 times more iron based on the behavior of the crash, and 1,000 times higher uranium. We don't have that in our solar system. That strongly suggests interstellar travel. Another interstellar travel happened at the Pan-STARR telescope in Hawaii. The people there, smart astronomers, tracked something and tracked it, and they said, wow, this is a really interesting meteorite. They called it Oumuamua. It came into our solar system at a really high rate. When meteorites and asteroids come toward the sun, they come at a rate that suggests that they are gravitationally bound to our sun. Oumuamua did not. It was traveling profoundly too fast. And when it swung around the sun, its speed increased. This is not typical of the way meteorites perform. And the hypothesis was made that maybe this craft is intelligently monitored or remotely controlled. Moving on. Why am I passionate about this topic? Well, I was a school teacher, and every year students always ask questions about origin and faith and the Big Bang and things of that nature. They're still asking those questions. Unfortunately, when the news comes on about extraterrestrials and faith leaders can't answer the questions, these youngsters or even adults are left hanging with, what am I supposed to do? Well, I wrote a book. It's called Iridium Proverbs. You can find it online. That's why I'm passionate about this topic. So I told you what happened to me in the 5th grade, but I hit middle school running. I was the captain of the cheerleading squad. I was first string in basketball. I held the high jump record in 7th and 8th grade. I played volleyball. I had friends in all my sports, friends in all my classes, friends with my teachers. I burned a 2-friend model. I don't even remember my family in middle school because I was having so much fun with school and sports and hanging out and just having a good time. Let's go to another false paradigm. We talked about the one that UFOs are not real, doesn't work anymore, or that they're test craft being tested from other governments, doesn't work anymore. Interstellar travel is not possible. That doesn't work anymore either. Another false paradigm is that everything extraterrestrial is demonic. One man that I respect abundantly even wrote a book that said this: if you see UFOs or extraterrestrials, you must have been involved in an occult practice just beforehand. Occult meaning, Ouija boards, seances, tarot cards. Really? Go tell that to fleet admirals, to Navy pilots, to sonar technicians who have documented evidence of the reality of things that they're seeing in the skies for decades. It was started in 2019 that these Navy pilots had new equipment on their planes, and they were finally allowed to document what they're seeing without fear of losing their job, being called crazy, taken out of the ranks of their other constituents. This is a beautiful thing now that they can talk about. Now, what I learned, I went to a seminar in Tucson. It was put on by Luis Elizondo, a superhero. And he told us that these craft that are moving rather rapidly, the G-forces are extreme, but they have an anti-gravitational bubble around them. They'd almost have to. This is how the biologicals inside are living through the intense speeds that these craft are moving at. I'd like to share with you more proof that I wasn't always a geek studying these things. And by the way, youngsters among us, studying ancient scripture does not make you a geek. But here's one thing that is important. When I started high school, I had a boyfriend. Even though I went to an all-white high school, I had a boyfriend. His name was Bobby. Shh, it's kind of a secret. I'm still crushing on Bobby. But one day Bobby called me up and he said, "Hey, Mary, let's race." You want to race on our bikes? Or bicycles? Or... No, Mary, I got a car. Let's go race. It sounds kind of dangerous. No, I'll find a spot. It'll do it on the weekend. There won't be any traffic. Everything will be safe. Okay, so we go to his spot. Everyone's got seatbelts on. I'm with my friend TT in the back seat and an exchange student from a Nordic country. No exchange students were harmed in this car race. So the windows are down. It's summer. My friends are shouting from the back. 3, 2, 1. I'm gone. Because that's just how I was. And so 1 second goes by, 2, 3, 4, or around 5, 6, 7 seconds. I hear my friends in the back go, "Mary, Mary, 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 Mary. Slow down. There's nobody next to you." So I'm at 10 and 2. I look over. There's nothing there. It's just corn and houses and crops, and I just I shift down, because back then in the day you had a clutch and a shifter, and okay, so I turn around and I come back, and before I turned around I looked out my driver's rear view mirror and I saw a cloud of dust with rectangular objects in the cloud. And I thought, what is his car made of? That is so bizarre. So I come back and I see that he's gone off the road. And I said, okay, girls, we got to be cool. We can't say anything mean. He might be hurt. He's going to be embarrassed for sure, even if he's not hurt. So we get there. He's not hurt. Bobby had hit a post in the ground, and on top of the post were 7 mailboxes, turning end to end. Okay, so we go up. We all give him a hug, and I drop my head. And in the most meekest girlfriend voice of all lovingness that I could muster, I say this. Bobby, what were you thinking? Do you see what I'm driving? It's like a muscle car. It's a 350 4-barrel dual exhaust 4 on the floor SS Chevy Nova. And at that time, Bobby realizes that he's driving a Dodge Dart. Bobby, what were you thinking? Why would you think that could catch this? About that time, I started to make friends, more friends, with my best friend Greta. Greta started to talk to me about worldview and asked me if I was going to heaven when I died. Worldview matters. And I said, of course I'm going to heaven when I die. I did this thing when I was an infant, and I did this other thing with the beads, and I did this other thing. I'm from this gigantic world. Of course I'm going to heaven. How dare you ask me? And she said, Mary, it doesn't really work that way. I listened and I listened and I listened, and at 16, I left the worldview of my youth. And at 19, I found the Creator. I couldn't understand what I was in anyways, because if you lose something, you prayed to this created being. When you had the beads, you prayed to that created being. When you go on a trip and you want safety, you pray to this other created being. It just didn't make any sense to me. Like I said, at 19, I found the Creator. Did I mention the false paradigm that everything extraterrestrial is demonic? So that has some logic to it. There is this ancient scripture that says Satan is the prince of the power of the air. But let me be very clear about worldview being so important. Remember, when Christ was tempted in the desert, the thing Satan offered him was giving him all the kingdoms of the earth if he would bow down and worship him. So there's a group called the Dogon tribe that lives Sierra Leone and also Mali. And they have been worshiping the same created being for 4,000 years. And their created being came from Sirius B. Oh, what? We didn't know there was a Sirius B until 1860, when the optics were developed enough to see, hey, there's a little faint star by Sirius A. Because that Sirius A was so bright, it was blocking out the other star. How did these people know there was a star there? I want to introduce this concept called a cargo cult. Space travelers come here, they share their knowledge and wizardry and technology with us, and in exchange, they want us to worship them. That doesn't sound like it's working for the team of the Creator. So I understand that demonic concept. But let me take you to 2 Kings 6, 16 through 17. The prophet Elisha was about to be attacked and killed by the enemy force. And horses and chariots of fire, that is code for extraterrestrial on the side of the Almighty. When you see horses and chariots of fire taking Elijah, side of the Almighty, extraterrestrials. Horses and chariots of fire with Ezekiel, side of the Creator. These horses and chariots of fire came to protect Elisha, and his prayer was, God, open the eyes of my servant so that he may also see. And there they were. Horses and chariots of fire in extreme number, more than the enemy had. Check it out. Let me tell you what my credentials are to talk about this topic. 40 years studying ancient scripture. Air Force, Department of Defense, multiple years held a top secret security clearance. Over a decade teaching earth and space science. Oddly enough, these all merge together on this topic. So sometimes I have a little bit of comedy going on in my head. So when the F-18s flew up from the Nimitz to chase the craft went left, it went right. Here comes these F-18s. They do a little bit of ducking and weaving, and then in a streak of speed, they are gone. And in my mind, I hear these extraterrestrials and their gravity bubbles saying, humans, do you see what we're driving? This craft can go 13,000 miles an hour. It has no visible signs of propulsion. It has no wings. It has no thrusters. It doesn't need to midair refuel like your F-18s do. Humans, 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 do you see what we're driving? It's kind of funny. All right, let's go on. I am extremely grateful that humans have a creator. Because if they didn't, these things have such a knowledge of physics that we don't have. They would have taken us years ago if we didn't have something protecting the planet. So my friends have asked me, Mary, how do we find out more about this? Well, you do what everybody else does. Go to the website. The book is there. And an outline for a book study is there. There's some other tools there. I'll be glad to show you. But we need to start the conversation on a grassroots level so that people, especially in faith groups, are not afraid to ask their pastors these questions. And if they do what they did to me and give them crickets, which means nothing, they can go read up about it and start their own out of church Bible study. So let me take my comfort with science and ancient scripture and put it together again. Science says there's 100,000 billion trillion stars, depending on the scientist you ask. That's a lot of stars, a number of exponents that I can't even wrap my mind around. These big stars went supernova in the early cosmos to give us the beautiful elements of life. Ancient scripture says that the Creator knows every star by name. I don't know how that's possible to have that many names. But don't you think He knows you by name? Don't you think He cares about you? Don't you think He wants you on His team? He does. The dark side doesn't care. In 2012, I lost my brother. He took his life. Humans. I don't care if you went to a mosque, a temple, a synagogue, a nature walk, if you go to a country church or a Gothic cathedral. I don't really care where you go. The Creator wants a relationship with you. Humans, consider the Creator.